Welcome back to Ink and Insights, where words aren't just read, they're explored. Today we're asking a fascinating question. Is the impact of Shakespeare measurable? We often hear that William Shakespeare is the greatest writer of all time. But is that just admiration shaped by tradition? Or can we actually measure his influence in real, meaningful ways? Let's step beyond the myths and look at the evidence in language, storytelling, psychology, and culture. Shakespeare was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon. Over the course of his life, he wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and several long poems. But numbers alone don't explain why he still dominates global literature. His real impact lies in how deeply he shaped the way we speak, think, and tell stories. The literary critic Harold Bloom once made a bold claim. He said, "Shakespeare invented the human." It sounds exaggerated at first, but Bloom wasn't talking about biology. He was talking about psychology. He meant that Shakespeare transformed how we understand inner life, emotion, and identity. Let's start with something surprisingly measurable: language. Shakespeare introduced more than 1,700 words into the English language. Words like lonely, majestic, addiction, bedroom, and eventful. These are not rare or poetic words, they're part of everyday speech. That means millions of conversations today still carry echoes of Shakespeare. He also created phrases we use without realizing their origin. Phrases like break the ice, heart of gold, and wild goose chase. These expressions survived revolutions, industrialization, and the digital age. That kind of linguistic longevity is not accidental. It's measurable cultural penetration. In Hamlet, he writes, "What a piece of work is a man." A simple sentence, yet deeply philosophical. It reflects a new kind of self-awareness that was revolutionary during the Renaissance. Shakespeare wasn't just writing dialogue, he was redefining how language could capture thought. Now let's move from words to stories. Even if you've never read Shakespeare, you've likely experienced his influence. The structure of forbidden love in Romeo and Juliet still defines romantic tragedy. The dangerous ambition of Macbeth echoes in political dramas. The destructive jealousy of Othello appears in countless modern films and novels. Some adaptations are obvious. Disney's The Lion King mirrors the structure of Hamlet: a prince, a murdered father, and a corrupt uncle. Teen comedies like 10 Things I Hate About You reimagine Shakespearean plots in modern settings. These aren't coincidences. They are proof that Shakespeare created storytelling blueprints still used today. His contemporary, the playwright Ben Jonson, recognized this early. He wrote, "He was not of an age, but for all time." At the time, it sounded like praise. Today it reads like prophecy. It's like, another powerful way to measure Shakespeare's impact is education. His works are studied in classrooms across the world, from the UK and the United States to India, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Japan. Few writers achieve that level of global academic permanence. He is also one of the most translated authors in history. Students from completely different cultures analyze the same soliloquies, debate the same characters, and interpret the same themes. That shared intellectual experience across continents is measurable cultural influence. But perhaps Shakespeare's most profound impact lies in psychology. Before Shakespeare, many literary characters were symbolic: heroes, villains, or moral examples. But Shakespeare gave characters inner lives. He allowed audiences to hear thoughts, doubts, and fears directly. In Macbeth, we hear a man questioning reality itself. Is this a dagger which I see before me? This is not just drama, it is introspection. And in Julius Caesar he writes, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves." This line reflects a major philosophical shift of the Renaissance, the idea that humans shape their own destiny. Shakespeare didn't just entertain audiences, he helped redefine what it means to be human. And then there is longevity, one of the clearest measurements of influence. Shakespeare's plays are still performed every year across the globe. On grand stages like Broadway and London's West End, and in small community theatres and school productions. Institutions like the Royal Shakespeare Company and the reconstructed Shakespeare's Globe continue to perform his works regularly. Very few artists remain culturally active centuries after their death. Shakespeare is not just remembered. He is still performed, still debated, still reimagined. So when we ask whether Shakespeare's impact is measurable, the answer becomes clear. We can measure it in language, thousands of words and phrases still in use. We can measure it in storytelling, narrative structures that define modern cinema. We can measure it in education, a permanent place in global curricula. We can measure it in psychology, deeper portrayals of the human mind, and we can measure it in longevity, centuries of continuous performance. When a writer influences how humanity speaks, thinks, learns, and tells stories across cultures and centuries, that influence becomes more than legendary. It becomes measurable. And perhaps the most beautiful proof comes from Shakespeare himself. In Sonnet 18 he wrote, "So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee." He believed his words would outlive him. And more than 400 years later, they have. Not just in libraries, but in conversations, films, classrooms, and even in the way we understand ourselves. That is not just literary success, that is immortality through words. If you enjoyed this journey into the lasting power of literature, you're already part of what keeps it alive. Because here at Ink and Insights, we believe great writing never truly fades. It evolves, echoes, and inspires across generations. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves timeless ideas. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep discovering the depth behind great words. This is Ink and Insights, signing off.